I'll ask our brother Jim Kerwin to come up here again and lead us as he shares a little bit about his Isaiah Reid experience and his continued research into Isaiah Reid, the founding president. For those of you who haven't been here all week, if you were here last year, you probably got a bit of it. Jim Kerwin has come a long way from Virginia, 1,200 miles, to share with us some of the insights from the founding president, Isaiah Reid, of the Association. He has written a master's thesis on this, and he might share with us a little bit here tonight as to how he came about that, maybe give you a little more insight as to how he came so interested in Isaiah Reid.
Yes, it's true. I am not Isaiah Reid. I started at Regent University in 1990, and I don't remember who the dean of the School of Divinity was at that point in time, but he said something that was so profound that it stuck with me. He said, as graduate students, you are now scholars, and your responsibility is to add to the body of knowledge when you write your theses. And that was a profound thought to me. I'm now a scholar. I'm now to add to the body of knowledge. Well, I didn't get to do that right away because I became very ill for 6 years, couldn't work full time, couldn't go to school. Then I had to work for many years to get out of debt from not being able to work full time. But when I finally made it back to Regent, there was a different dean. He was a holiness man. He was very interested in me doing a thesis on somebody entirely different, someone from the Holiness movement who, to put it nicely, made Jimmy Swaggart look like a choir boy. And when I came out here in 2005, that's what I was interested in pursuing. I didn't know that you existed. You didn't exist on the internet. Certainly you were hard to find. But the evangelist who had spoken the year before, Dwayne Smith, is that it? 2004? He mentioned on his website that he had been here to a meeting, and I thought, well, he knows. It exists. It's amazing. After all these years, the Iowa Holiness Association exists. I had to find the Iowa Holiness Association because this scoundrel, whose name was Kerwin, basically set about systematically to ruin the holiness movement. That wasn't his goal, but that was the effect of what he was doing by sort of launching a hyper-holiness movement. And the man most responsible for opposing him was Isaiah Reid. Now, Reid was quoted, he was always mentioned, but there was nothing about him. By the time I got all the way out to Tecumseh, Nebraska, and stood at the grave of Kerwin's wife, I took a vow and I said, I can't drag your family through this again. You've been through something terrible. And I knew I was on the wrong track. Brady, however, in typical Midwestern, I can't believe how trusting and open and wonderful Midwesterners are, I had asked to see the minutes of the Iowa Holiness Association, and so down we go into the basement of the gymnasium over here, into a locked vault. You had to actually go through a bank vault door, sort of. And he said, here, go ahead and take these home, and when you're done, bring them back. Records all the way back to 1877, and I thought, I can't believe this. So I began to read, and a month later, the Lord put it on my heart to change my whole thesis and to begin to work on Isaiah Reid, which was an act of faith, because all the things written about Isaiah Reid put together probably constitute maybe 12 pages. And most of that is non-Christian literature, just local history. But God began to open things up and open up sources, and I tracked down living descendants. One of his great-great-granddaughters had boxes of information. So God just opened the door, and the more I learned about him, the more wonderful the whole thing became. And I realized that I could not only add to the body of knowledge, but I could also perhaps be a help to the holiness movement by taking this one hero about whom no one had written and who hadn't had the foresight to write his own autobiography, as many of those fellows did, So he just became lost in the currents of history. The more I read about him, the more I realized why the Iowa Holiness Association still exists and was so powerful. And having done my thesis, I was all hot to trot to write his biography. And a wonderful holiness scholar by the name of Charles Jones, who lives in Oklahoma City, who was just thrilled with the thesis, said, "Jim, set it aside. Don't do it. I know you want to write the biography. I know that you're just itching to do it, but you need to put it aside and just let it percolate." And so for the last 6 years, essentially, I've been studying, reading Isaiah Reid. Those of you who follow our website know that we put something of his up every single month. We've been doing that for years, and we'll continue to do so until we run out of literature, which probably means in 3012 or something, because he was a prolific writer. So I've come to think like him. I don't know if I've come to speak like him, but our hearts beat the same in terms of a passion for God, a passion for holiness, a passion to see people coming into full salvation. With that, I will leave that subject, and we'll invite Brother Reid to come and speak to us tonight, if that's all right with you. He gets less long-winded as he goes along. It's a good thing, too. Tonight, I want to share with you one of the secret weapons of the Iowa Holiness Association. One of the things that made us powerful. One of the things that can still keep us powerful. And that is the women of the Iowa Holiness Association. Now, I don't know if you know it, but our history in the holiness movement is such that we have always let women go to the forefront when it comes to ministry. Well, we've got a sister here who's a pastor, another who's a missionary, and I don't know what all the rest of you do. We're not come out of a background where women are to be seen and not heard. They can do the bake sales, but not the preaching. Now, part of that is our Methodist heritage. Part of it is a sister by the name of Phoebe Palmer. I haven't time to go into her story. She's not really part of the IHA, though she had a great influence on us. She was born, well, actually, she got into what they call her Tuesday morning meetings, where they were leading bishops and pastors into the experience, she and her sister. They started in 37. In 1839, they started to let the men come in because the men were desperate to get what the women had. Did you know that? There were certain churches that she was asked to not preach in, but she was asked to speak in. Her husband, Dr. Palmer, worked out an arrangement with her. He would preach for 10 minutes, and she would, testify for an hour. You see how that works. All right. Well, that's part of your heritage. She wrote a book, by the way, called The Promise of the Father. And it's a wonderful defense of women in ministry. Well, I'd like to tell you about several different sisters in the IHA, or who would come here on a regular basis. There were sisters like Mary J. Reid, who was always a part of the leadership. Now, she spelled it the wrong way, the English way, R-E-E-D, but nevertheless, we let her in. There was a sister, a wonderful evangelist, and also a pastor sometimes, called Phoebe Epperson. She had a profound influence on us. We loved to have her come and speak at camp meeting. And she ministered in many of the county organizations. Some of you men look like you don't believe me, but it's true. You know, you think about it. Think about it. As God goes through the days of creation, it's good, it's good, it's good, it's good. Stop. We need to do an expansion of the 6th day. We get partway through the 6th day. Only man is there, and God says, it's not good. Then he makes woman, and at the end of the 6th day, he says, it's very good. You say, but the woman being deceived was in the transgression. Yes, that's true. What that also tells you is the man not being deceived was in the transgression. It's right, isn't it? Jesus did not have to come as the second Eve. He had to come as the second Adam, because the woman being deceived was in the transgression. But the man, knowing full well what he was doing, went ahead and did it anyhow. I believe the term is male chauvinist, is that it? While it's not a good recommendation among holiness people, I would say to those who fall into that category, put it in your pipe and smoke it. All right. Now, another sister who was not an IHA member, but who had a profound ministry here in the States, in Africa, was Amanda Smith. Do you know her? She was a wonderful colored lady. Oh, a powerful preacher, powerful evangelist, powerful missionary. Which brings up the question, when is the last time you had a black brother or sister come and stand in this podium? Oh, if you'd had Amanda Smith, you'd have more of them. But now I need to tell you about my favorite sister, the one who had the most profound influence on me, and a very quiet but very profound influence on the Iowa Holiness Association. Her name was Mary Braden Reid. And I can tell you she was the smartest, the most beautiful, the most astounding woman. I should know, I married her. So she became Mary Ellen Braden Reid. Now, we were married in 1860. I was away from her several years, at least during the school year, when I was in New York. We had 2 children. The year after our second child, Minnie, was born. Do you know what a cutter is? A C-U-T-T-E-R. Well, it's a small sleigh. Well, in the winter of 1868, she was in a cutter accident. It was upset, went over into a ditch, horse ran away, and she was maimed for life. We had no more children after that. But Mary, coming from Presbyterian roots like I did, nevertheless didn't write me off. When I got sanctified, she did too. She was in full support when we were kicked out of our church. I'm sorry, no, that's not right. We were given the left boot of fellowship. Yes. And she followed me. She tended the house while I was out doing evangelistic crusades all summer. And when we set up the IHA camp, it was always Mary who set up the hospitality tent, who helped the newcomers to find where they should be, who helped them find the meetings, who was this quiet influence, who ran the home through which visitors were always coming. There's a sweet influence that she still has in the friendliness and the peace that sometimes comes when the saints gather here. So I want you to think about some of these sisters, the preachers, the leaders, and even the quiet ones like my Mary, whom you'll usually hear me just call wife. These are part of your heritage. These should be an encouragement, an inspiration, that sisters can be used by God in any way He so chooses. Now, I don't believe about women in ministry. Of course, I don't believe in men in ministry. What I believe is someone who gets a call from God is filled with the Holy Ghost. And then, whether they're male or female, I care not. God cares not. It's that they have a calling. Thank you. And I won't say good evening, because it turns out, may we do this? It's a segue to a very special night in the IHA's history. And for that, I'll turn you over to the current president, not the one who was the president for the first 29 years of your organization. Brother Hunter.